Well, what do you think, Steph? You want to go over nutrition?
So this nutrition is we could have had 100 slides on this, right? So we had to try and tailor it, obviously, for brain health and just some of the things. Like, there's a million rabbit holes you could go down. You could almost get anxiety thinking about it. But what we wanted to do when we were talking about this was just like, okay, what do we think is so important? Like, not only for our patients, but what do we do with our own kids? Because, right, like we love, I mean, I love your kid, but I love my kid more, right? So I'm, this is the stuff that we think is by far the most important for kids in general, but it is what we do with our own kids. And one of the supplements that we always keep in the house for them is an omega-3 fatty acid, or like a fish oil, better known as fish oil. And as he talked about before, it's one of the reasons that fat is so important for the brain. The brain is made up of fat, it myelinate with fat. So it's probably your most important supplement for brain function in general. And the body can't make it on its own. So you have to get it from diet. So you could get enough of it if you ate like 4 salmons a week. If everybody, that's how you could get enough DHA. But if you're not eating 4 wild caught fresh salmons, that's one of the things that kids and adults should supplement with. And it's also incredibly important. There's a lot of studies that show that if kids are taking that on a regular basis, they are much better prepared for if they ever have a concussion. So while it's something that, like, if a kid comes into our office with a concussion, it's something that we tell them they should supplement with, but it's one of those things that if you are pre-doing it, your healing from a concussion time will go down a lot. So if your kids play soccer, football, anything that has like a high concussion rate, and they're getting proper omega-3s, then they're going to be less susceptible to a bad injury from a concussion. So the other reason, provides energy, reduces inflammation. It's one of our most powerful anti-inflammatories. Prevents blood clotting. It's also they actually are starting to give it now as like a prescription for Alzheimer's and things like that. So and personally, I would use it as a preventative versus using it once you get it. The other ways that you can get high doses of omega-3s, this is how we get a lot of it in our house. Obviously, I said like the wild-caught salmon, grass-fed finished beef, it's going to have a high content pasture-raised eggs. You're not going to get it, so there's omega-3s are what are really good for us, and then we also have omega-6s, and in the body you want a 1-to-1 ratio. Because of the diet we have in America, most people are at more of a 20-to-1 ratio, which isn't very good, which is why we have, that's probably the leading cause for like heart attacks, plaquing in the arteries and things like that. And so they has tested the difference. Grass-fed and grass-finished beef have a higher omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, but when they are eating grains and things that are, when they're being fed all the omega-6s, the ones that aren't grass-fed or finished have a higher level of omega-6. You're not getting it unless it's grass-fed or finished. Same thing with pasture-raised organic eggs. You're getting a higher omega-6 if you're just eating eggs that aren't grass-fed and pasture-raised.
And we'll give them some examples too about how to kind of eliminate those omega-6s or what to look out for too in a couple slides right here.
The other thing that people have vilified forever is butter. Grass-fed butter actually is very high in omega-3s, and it's very stable. It's very stable fat to cook with. Doesn't get rancid or turn a lot of oils, even good oils, like even cooking with olive oil. Olive oil is a great omega-3, but it's only a great omega-3 as long as you don't heat it. The second you heat it, you flip the balance. So we've come back around in our house to, that's all I cook with is butter. Yeah. Wild-caught salmon, cashews, chia seeds, hazelnuts. So those are all great sources when they come from food. Antioxidants would be the next thing. Those are things that like inhibit free radicals in our body, which we live in a world that is pretty toxic, and so that toxicity in the body, that's basically what it creates, is free radicals. That's what ages us faster. It's what turns genes that lead to cancer. And so what we want to do is balance all the free radicals that we just have that we're in contact with things like antioxidants. So blueberries, apples, pecans, walnuts, Brazil nuts, broccoli, sweet potatoes, purple potatoes. You can buy them in a vitamin C is one of our strongest antioxidants, glutathione. Try to buy organic, because obviously if there's pesticides on it, that's going to limit the amount of antioxidants it actually has. But if you can't, a good place to look is the Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. There's always a list every year where they tell you the cleanest vegetables that they've tested for pesticides, and then the ones that contain the most. So like if you're shopping, a lot of times of the Dirty Dozen, I will always make sure I buy organic, but if I can't find it, then I'll try to stick with the Clean 15. And one of the other reasons that we need a lot of these antioxidants is because we don't have the same soil that we did 100 years ago. Things aren't grown in the same soil, and we're not getting a lot of the minerals that soil used to give us when we grew things back in the day.
I want to speak on one more thing there. You know, when you're talking about that, what now we're like a 20-to-1 ratio of omega-6s, which are more inflammatory than omega-3s. That's because think of most people or most kids that either you have or you know of. You know, what is their main diet? Is it more eating like chicken nuggets and goldfish and things that are highly processed? That's the kind of things that we're talking about, and we'll reiterate that in a little bit. So it's not just only these two things to incorporate, but it's also looking at a couple things to take away that we'll talk about.